Welcome to Group Policy webinar, and thank you so much for joining in. So guys, today we will be moving on and learning group policies in a very easy manner, which makes things way more clear. The nice thing about group policies is that it's once you know the right way, you can handle it, like you can tweak it in a way which will best suit your requirements. So lots of people come to our classes, and they say that, especially like if you guys know MCSC, they would come and they would say that we know everything, but we would like to review group policies because that is our like weak point or something which we would like to understand in a better way. So today we thought it's a good opportunity to pick up policies and show you policies in a different manner, or in a manner which is more interesting to understand, not like you are in the class and you're taught so that you pass the test, but rather it is told to you in a way that will help you go back to your environment and understand why policies and what is the reason behind policies. Okay, so give me a second. I'm going to share my screen here. One sec, and I'll pull up my slides. Okay, just a second. Here we go. So let me share my screen, guys. Bear with me. Anas, if you're there, can you let me be the host? Because I'm not able to share somehow. Let me just see.
Yeah, I'm trying to make you Mark, could you please do this favor for us?
Yeah, thank you, because otherwise I won't be able to share my
Yeah,
screen.
we are going to become your
Thank
panelist
you.
or
Thank you so
host. Thanks.
much.
Please bear with us.
Yeah. Yeah, just let me know when I'm the host and I can get going from there by pulling out my slides.
Now you are the host.
Perfect. So guys, let's keep going. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if I can. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So guys, let's start with group policies. So guys, it was a very challenging thing. Most of us know group policies, and you would think that what new or what extra would come up in this webinar, but we tried to make sure to make it so interesting that you do go back, even if it's a small time, you go back with some knowledge. So here we are in a webinar called Understanding the Implementation of Active Directory Group Policies. And my name is Deepika Aneja. I'm really sorry for all the delay because we would have gone through a proper introduction. So I'm in IT since 1990s, and I do work with NetApp and Microsoft. I started with Microsoft when it was Windows NT4. And then, yes, I was the first one to deal with group policies. And yes, it was very hard when it used to be Windows 2000 beta, and I had no help about what is a tree and what is a forest and what were group policies. So that was the time when, I was struggling, and I was like, I need to understand well before I can take it to the clients and tell them to adopt it. So here we are. The agenda of this webinar is that we will first try to understand what are group policies, where can I apply them, what is the processing in which group policies work, and how can we apply group policies, followed by a demonstration. So let's keep going, guys. First of all, how would you define policies? Policies can be defined like most of the people say. If I ask them policies, they think they're restrictions, which is right. They are restrictions, but they could also be a privilege. Like if you have ever handled group policies, there are also rights. Like, I can give you a right to shut down the system or give you right to backup. So I summarize the definition in a way that group policies are a set of restrictions or extra privileges given to a user or computer. I have not taken this definition from any book or anything, because my idea is to put across to you the real reason of what policies are. So guys, the important thing to understand here is that policies are for user or for remember this, So if I apply a policy to a user, no matter where he goes within the domain, policies will follow him. If I assign a policy on the computer, no matter who logs on gets it. So remember, this is the very first thing. And also, policies is something which you can't just go in and start doing or applying. You need to have a proper planning. Like I mentioned, policies are now pretty old and people have already got them laid down. But there are lots of times people have configured it in a, like, I would say a crooked manner, and the things are being done, but that's not the smart way to use it. And because policies are very I would say you need to be very creative dealing with policies, because there's no one way to accomplish a task, there can be more than one. So these basic things really help you understand policies. Like I mentioned, the very first thing is its restrictions or privileges given to a user or a computer. And I also mentioned that if you give it to a user, no matter where he goes in the domain, the policies follow them. So once I apply it on the account, I know he's going to get it. Similarly, if I have some computers, let's say my front desk area or some department where I want to lock down the computers, then the settings will be on the computer. That also tells us that group policies have two kinds of settings: user settings and computer settings. And you have to decide whether you would like to give it for a particular user or you would like to give it on a computer, which means no matter who logs on that box gets it. Typically, group policies are used in various ways, and some of the important ways are applying security settings. When we say security settings, the first thing comes in our mind is password, account lockout, because these are some important security settings which every company has to lay down. Then you can also you can manage desktop applications, you can deploy softwares, you can also manage folder redirection from there. Guys, there is an endless list of what policies can do. You can configure network settings, whether it's firewall. So imagine if there were 20 computers and you wanted to disable or enable firewall or filter some rules. So you want to set up, instead of doing it on every computer, you would do it through group policies, and it can be way more easier handled. So whenever we work on policies, I always tell people that there are two things to learn about policies. Whenever we hear policies, it's either, first of the thing is how policies work or how can I apply the policies. And then the other aspect of learning policies is what all can we configure. Now guys, in this webinar, our focus is how policies work versus what you can do, because this list is never ending. And the more experience you have, the more settings you know, that because there are thousands of settings which we can apply. But if you know where to apply it to, how it works, that's the more important piece. Okay. So before I take you to the working of policies, we need to understand that policies are applied at different levels. So yes, policy can be given to a user and a computer, which we discussed, but I cannot apply policy directly to a user or directly to a computer. So what is the whole trick behind it? Now, in Active Directory group policy world, there are 4 places where you would apply policies. One being local group policy. Now, what is local group policy? Which you applied on the computer itself. Now, if you are working in a domain environment, guys, remember in a domain environment, you would always, like if you're looking at some documentation and you see a triangle, that mainly represents a domain. And in the real world, nobody works on a work group. In a work group kind of environment, you probably are assigning local policies, but in the real world, we always assign the policies sitting on a domain controller, which means I can assign the policy on the domain, which means all the users or all the computers get it. Or if only some users need the policy, I would create an organizational unit. So let's say in my domain, I have got 100 users and I want to apply the policy only to 10 of them. I'm going to place those 10 users in an OU, and instead of applying the policies on the domain, I apply it on the OU. And another way we can apply policies is sites. In Active Directory terminology, site is actually physical. which means location. Domains and OUs are logical. So think about a company, let's take an example. They have a single domain, let's say test.com, but their physical presence is in two locations. Okay, so those two locations, if you want to control, you might end up creating it as a site 1 and site 2. And then you would like to make each site self-reliant. So think about site as a location. The right definition of Active Directory site is collection of one or more subnets connected through high-speed bandwidth. That would be a site. So again, guys, like I mentioned, this all comes under Active Directory designing that you would end up having. If let's say you have a domain in one location, then you probably are using the default first site and everything falls under one location. You don't need to worry. And you should also know, I mean, if not, feel free to ask that later on when you expand your domains or you are having another department coming up in your company, you might decide of creating another domain which could behave like a child domain. So how you can decide different policies on child domain and different policies on the domain, because they are in the same location. You would not put the policy on the site, because if you put the policy on the site, everyone gets it. If you want different settings on different domains, you would apply it on the domain. If some users here need a different policy, make an OU. Some computers here need a policy, make an OU. So this is how, guys, we have to sit down and decide how you're going to apply the policies. And the four options to choose from is that either you go to every computer and set up a local policy, which is definitely a big overhead, or what we generally do in the real world is we decide who needs the policy. Everyone in the domain, then let's put it on the domain. Some users, let's make an OU, put the users there and put the policy on the OU. Okay, does it make sense, guys? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Yes, guys, feel free to ask. Any questions? And also, just for your information, that in case you have a question once we are done and something clicks on your mind, just feel free to send us your question and we'll try to answer it back. Okay, so let's keep going. And after knowing these are the four possible options, we have to, so this is all part of planning, that who needs the policy and where can we apply it. Okay, so you could also think about a picture like this in your mind. This is your site, domain, OU. I'm not talking about local policy, guys, because I really don't want to do that because it's too much work doing it on every computer. Once I'm in a domain environment, I would rather choose site, domain, or OU. Okay, but think about a picture like this in your mind, that under your site, you can apply policies to computers. Under your site, you can apply policies to users. Similarly, in a domain, you can apply policies to computers or users. Computers or users. So this summarizes so far what I've been teaching you, that policies can be applied either to computer or a user. But wait a minute, we cannot apply it directly to a user or a computer. They need to be packed up in some level. So either I apply at site level, domain level, if you're fine, every user should get it or every computer should get it, or if you want to be specific, you put it on OU. You must have noticed that we always type site, domain, OU. Why? Because this is how policies execute. Whenever you are sitting on a computer and you log in, it automatically checks, are there any site policies? If yes, apply them. Are there any domain policies? Apply them. Are there any OU policies which we match to? Apply them. And the rule is last one wins. That is how we learn how policies work, that in case of conflict, the last one wins, which means in case of a conflict between site and domain, domain will win. Domain and OU, OU will win. The last one wins, which means the last one executed will have the more preference. So that's the picture here, kind of showing you that if you turn on the computer and let's say you have some local policy defined there, you would always see local policy being executed, then site, then domain, and then OU. And maybe if there is a child OU, it would be child OU after that. So something like if there was an OU policy and there is a child OU policy, if conflict, which one do you think will win? If there is GPO1 here and GPO2 here, which one do you think will win if conflict happens? Anyone? Yes, guys, what do you think? Our rule is the last one wins. So do you think child OU policy will be effective? Yeah, in this case, 5. But in my example here, so basically the answer is child OU policies will have more priority over the parent by default. So this is how, guys, policies work. And we will be covering the most important discussion for this webinar would be these different things which we can configure on group policies. And this is how you can achieve what you want. In order to make you understand what is inheritance, blocking, forcing, linking, and filtering, these are your Active Directory tools. And you have to use it very cautiously to get what you want. In order to make you understand this, and this is actually, guys, how policies work, I will be giving you a demonstration on showing you how these 5 tools help you. Before that, let's take an example that you have got OU1, which has user1. Let's say that there are some policies on domain and site, but we are just talking about a particular OU to make our discussion easy. I created a policy called GPO1 on OU1. Tell me who all will get it. Simple. Yes, guys, who all will get this policy and why? Anyone? Yes, guys, very good, Benny. OU1 will get it because it's applied on OU1. And why is OU2 getting it? Because he's the child OU. So guys, what we have to understand is that when you go out in companies and you have to deal with policies, the OU design model is very, very important for you to understand before you can apply the policy. Because if you apply the policy on parent OU, it will go down to child or sub-child OUs. And this is called what? Inheritance. So what does that tell you? That if you feel like that OU1 and OU2 should have the same policy, don't waste time putting it 2 times. Just put it on the parent and it will come down. This is one of the rule in which you should know, and it will really benefit you. But if the person who's designing the OU remembers these things and designs the OU in a manner, it will be easy life for you, right? Because put it on the top, let it go down, because all the sub OUs are designed in a way that they should inherit the policies. But guys, let's face it, in the real world, when you go to companies, the OU design was done by some other team or some consultant, and he designed OU thinking, organizational, background in mind, or the location in mind, or the organizational departments in mind. So guys, this is again a very important discussion that your OU design model should be designed in a way keeping policies in mind. Otherwise, you will have to use some other tools which can make policy management little difficult. So here is the thing. Now, group policies should be put on the top and let it go down, and this will make your life easy. This is inheritance. Let's take an example, guys, that I have user 1 under OU1, and what I do is, now I go to a company where I applied the policy on OU1, but I don't know why they kept OU2 under OU1, because I don't think so user 2 should be getting these settings. Now what I do? Now, if I have to do this, if I have to do this, it kind of tells me that the OU design model is not as per policy requirements. But what do I do? If I tell them to redesign it, they say, no, there's something else keeping in mind that we designed it. And maybe they are using it because of some departments, but I know that this policy should not be applied to anybody under OU2. In this situation, guys, what you need to do is you select OU2 and you do what we call is blocking. Now, what blocking does is, blocking will make sure that the policy does not come down, which means now the answer is, earlier GPO1 was going to user 1 and 2 because of inheritance. Now GPO1 will be given only to user 1 and not to user 2. Oh, that's good. That solves my issue. But that's not enough. Why? Because blocking, lots of people don't know, blocking is done at a level, and blocking just blocks everything coming from top. Oh my God. That means what was the picture we studied, guys? Remember the picture we studied, that the topmost level of policy is sites, domain, OU, and then maybe a child OU. So if you're blocking anything here, thinking that it should block the policies from my parent OU, yes, it did block it. But don't forget, the blocking is so harsh that it's going to block everything from the extreme top. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. But sorry, blocking is blocking. So what do I do? Yes, I wanted to block GPO1, but I didn't want it to block something coming from domain or site. So that's what I'm trying to teach you guys, is that you have to use your tools appropriately. So what do you need to do? There should be some way around to come out of this problem. Yes, I want to block policy, but not everything. Unfortunately, this blocking tool is not with respect to a GPO. When you block, you never say block this. It simply is blocking it's like a barrier saying, I'm not seeing anything coming from top, something like that, which means it will block everything or nothing. Okay, so let's take another example. Same thing. I'm not going in the domain piece. I'm just making it a little simple. Let's take an example that I have got two policies created on OU1 and OU2 has a block. What does that mean? If you block at the child OU level, what will it block? It will block and even anything above OU. Now, this situation created a lot of chaos because this is not what we wanted. So in order to come out of this problem, what we can do is, if the requirement was only to block GPO1 and not GPO2, you can select the policy and say enforce. Now, what is this? This is another tool which we are learning. What enforce does is that in spite of you blocking, it will still go down. That is helpful in case of blocking. So even if you blocked at a level and you want some policies from the top to still go down, you will have to select the GPO and say enforce. And now what will be the answer? What policies will user 2 get? Anybody? In this example, what policies will user 2 get? There is a block on OU2 and OU1 had 2 GPOs. Which GPO you think will user 2 get? Anybody? Anybody wants to try? Anybody? Very good, very good, very good. He would get only GPO2. Why? Because even in spite of being blocked, it's been enforced. So OU2 has a block barrier, but user 2 will still penetrate down. Now, another twist. When you enforce, what does it do? Enforce is used for 2 things, guys. Listen to this carefully. When we enforce policies, it is step 1, going to go down even if anybody tries to block it down the lane. And this policy will execute at the end. What does that mean? Execute at the end means that if any other lower policy tries to contradict it, it's not going to work. And remember, what rule did I tell you about the policies? What rule did we learn about the policy? Last one wins. So if you enforce a policy and that policy goes down the barrier, and what it will do is, if let's say, it will calculate all the policies which user 2 will be getting in case there were some other sub OUs, but this policy will execute at the end with the highest priority. So to summarize, guys, think about it like this. If a domain admin spends hours creating a policy and link it to a domain, and a junior admin, OU admin, tries to create a setting which contradicts, what do we learn? Domain and OU conflict. What wins? If a domain policy conflicts with OU policy, the last one wins. And what is our hierarchy? Site, domain, OU. So imagine what was the point of domain admin spending so much time setting up a domain policy, and an OU admin creates some settings which contradicts, and if it's conflicting, OU wins. That is the situation. What we do in this situation, what we do is a domain admin will always set up this GPO on the domain and enforce it. By enforcing, what he does is he knows that even if a junior admin tries to make a setting which is conflicting, my policy will execute at the end with the highest priority. Does it make sense? Everyone understands? Any questions? Good. So guys, this is the fun piece. Like I mentioned, there are always, if I was a consultant and I go in and I was told that this is how I want policies to work, I'm sure I can give you one way and there's another consultant, he can give you another way, because policies are designed in a way that everyone has their own way of applying it. But then comes the best practices, or I would say the smart way of applying it, and a longer way, you can say, of applying it. Both the things will have the goals achieved. But if you do it in a crooked way, by doing all, like using everything, here and there, it will be confusing for you. Troubleshooting will be hard. So that is the reason, guys, I would, in this example here up front, I would highly recommend you, the very first thing I would do if I go to a company where I actually feel that they need to, just a second, I'm sorry. Just give me 1 second, guys, I'm sorry. So this is basically, guys, that, like I said, it would be difficult for us to, like I mentioned, that, one way, the other person is saying the other way. So you have to be very, very careful applying it in a way. And like I mentioned, that as personally, if I go out as a consultant, my first criteria would be to fix the OU design, because I would really love to use the inheritance of going down and make my life easy. The more blocking, the more enforcing you use, the more complicated it gets, because today you did it, but tomorrow you probably might forget, why am I not getting this policy? Oh, I blocked it, but still I'm getting it. So the more OU designing should be appropriate for policies, the lesser you will have to use it. But let's face it, we end up using some of these things, but try to use it sparingly. If you were to design and if you had chances to remodel things, do it, change the structure versus, using too much of all this. So I introduced you to 3 tools: inheritance, blocking, enforcing. Guys, policies is one topic which is like so deep, but it's a quick webinar, and yeah, we would be more than happy to register you for a class, and you can learn in way more detail, the ups and the downs, the rights and the left. But let's keep going, and let me finish this, and then I'm going to give you a quick break. And I'm actually going to show you a demonstration of exactly what I'm drawing it here. Whatever you see on the paper here, like, on the presentation, I'm going to exactly do the same thing in the demo and show you the inheritance, blocking, and enforcing. And it will be more fun to see things happening after going through this discussion. Now, after learning these 3 things, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the other tools. We learned inheritance. Technically, you don't have to do anything for inheritance. It's mainly the OU design structure. Blocking is something which, like I said, if you think you really are stuck and you don't want any policies to go down, you block. What is the way around that? You'll have to go up. So see, you have to understand that blocking is done at a level, not with respect to a policy. And generally, it is done on a lower level to block the policies from the top. Forcing, on the other hand, is per GPO, not at a level. And it will be generally done on the upper level, saying that no matter. So there are 2 things forcing is doing. What are those 2 things? If you try to block it, it's going to go down. What is the other thing? it will execute at the end. So to quickly summarize, if I have GPO1 on OU1, and if I have GPO2 on OU2, if user 2 logs on, everything is working normal. I didn't do anything. If user 2 logs on, which policy will he get, guys? Let's make it interesting. When user 2 logs on, which policies will he get looking at this picture, and in which order? That's important. Good sand, but he would also get GPO1 because we didn't do any blocking or anything. So the right answer is user 2 under OU2, which is a child OU2, OU1. The policy given will be 1, GPO1, and then GPO2, which means in case of conflict, which wins? 2. Why? Because our rule is last one wins, right? Now, think about that if I select GPO1 and choose enforced. Yes, guys. If I choose enforce with GPO1, what did I tell you? That this policy will go down if you try to block it. That's one usage. And the second usage is it will execute at the end. Now tell me, after enforcing, what will happen? It will be policy number 2 and then policy 1, which means 1 has more priority over the 2. So I'm just trying to tell you that not only blocking, otherwise also enforce has its own usage, okay? The last one is linking, and then I'll try to make up a demo and show you guys. Actually, there are some more also, but let me just go over this. If you have OU1 with multiple GPOs, let's say GPO1, then child OU is OU2 with GPO2, and let's say there is another OU. Now, your requirement is that you are planning to have another OU in your organizational unit, but you only want GPO2 to be applied on this particular OU, OU4. Now, if I put OU4 under OU2, he's not only going to get GPO2, he's also going to get GPO1. And then I don't want that hassle of blocking and forcing. So I decided to create a new structure rather than putting this under the existing hierarchy. And then I will choose GPO2, which is a kind of what we call is linking. So linking tells you that the GPOs which are already created act like templates. So if you already have GPOs and they meet your requirements for other situations, you can always reuse it on different OUs also. That would be a better fit. Now, again, going back to what I've been saying, there is an admin, he decided to put OU4 under OU2 because he thought this was a better way. And then he realized, oh no, 1 and 2 is coming. Then he tries to come here and enforce it and all that. But the other consultant said that since there is no common policy usage, I would rather create a new OU4 and just link it to an existing GPO, which will be more relaxing and less work for me. So guys, this is linking. Okay, so existing GPOs can be linked. And I didn't mention, but if you want, I'll quickly tell you that there is also one important tool called filtering, if you guys have ever come across, where you have OU1 with, let's say, 10 users. And what happens is that you applied a GPO, which definitely goes to all the users, but you don't want it to go to user number 10 because he's the manager of that OU. And he doesn't care about getting that policy. He says, why are you applying it to me? I'm the manager. But he's part of the OU. So he gets it by default because of inheritance. So you can also manipulate in a way that go to a GPO. GPO also has its own settings. And if you go under the settings, you can actually choose user 10 and say deny policy access, which means you are filtering him out of this GPO. So these are different ways to accomplish, or I would say these are your tools which you can use in order to manage your policies. Actually, it's here, right? So I didn't see it. Inheritance, blocking, forcing, linking, filtering. And I'm going to show you all these things in a demonstration. Guys, I hope you understand policies is a very interesting and very in-depth topic, but we have a webinar, and actually, unfortunately, it's not a class. I have to stop myself from going into detail. So whatever I gave you in this particular, like my drawings, I'm going to practically show you all that. that will make it way more clear how to use these tools. But the main core of our discussion today was to introduce, or actually reintroduce, because most likely you guys have been using it, but just to make these things more clear in a more user friendly manner, so that you can go back and see what have you been using, or if it was required you can make a better choice. So guys, here I would take a quick 2-minute break and hand it over the presentation. You can also note down, they can give you the links too if you have any questions. In the meantime, I'll bring up the demonstration and I'll go over that. Sounds good? Is it good?
Yep, all good.
So guys, give me 2 minutes and I should be bringing up the demonstration for you. And the demonstration will incorporate all these 5 tools which I've been discussing. And just give me 2 minutes, guys. So I'll just take a break. And please feel free if you have any questions to put it on the chat window or email us. Okay, guys, just give me 2 minutes. I'm just waiting for my lab environment to show up, guys. And because I would need a domain controller coming up. So let me just have a look. In the meantime, guys, while the labs are being launched, it just takes a minute or so. We are using here labs on demand, so it sometimes takes time to load the domain controller. So I'm just holding on to that, and once it comes up, it shouldn't take us more than 5 to 10 minutes. Any questions so far you have? Any questions so far you want to ask about group policies? Anyone? Okay. So let's wait for, I'm just waiting for my lab to come up, and it should be up any minute, and then I'm going to show you these 4 or 5 things. Let me just turn it on from my share. Give me a second. I think the sharing kind of stuff. Let me just share back. Sorry, it's loading. And here we are, guys. Finally, I'm really sorry for the delay. So here we are, guys, server manager. Since it's there, I can't control to tell you that I know the very first thing people do is when they go to domain controller or any server box, they don't like server manager coming up and they would just close it. Guys, just to give you an idea, it's really good. Always keep it minimized on your desktop because all the tools management has been added to server manager. We are going to look at group policy, so we would be using a tool called group policy management, which we would be using. And right now I'm going to give you a demonstration on all what I was sketching and like prove that how things work, right? So let's play around. The very first thing is, let me quickly make an OU just like we saw, right? I know there's already so much going on here. Let me see if I can maximize this. Okay, so bear with me. Guys, let's create an OU. I hope you all know the best way to, or the only way to create an OU is you should be choosing your domain and then new OU. Otherwise, you will end up creating a sub OU. So just use the same structure as I had in my sketching. I'm making OU1 and I'm making a child OU right now, OU2. Now assume that there are a couple of users in OU1 and OU2. So let's take an example that I want to apply policy on OU1. Okay, so let's choose OU1 and right click. I'm just trying to have a little more fun here. Create a policy called GPO1, the way I was always putting up. And I know there are thousands of settings, but let's play around and see how policies always open up under 2 sections. So basically, it's kind of asking me that you are on an OU. Would you like to assign policies to the computers of the OU or users of the OU? In my example, it's users. So I don't want to go under computer because there's no computer on my OU. There are lots of templates here and I can just pick some random setting like, remove okay, let's do something easy. Something like remove my document icon from the desktop, and I can go to control panel and do lots of things, remove these applets, programs. There is so much I can keep doing. So assume that there are lots and lots of settings you defined under GPO1. Now, since you applied the GPO1 to OU1, who gets it? OU1, definitely, but OU2 as well. Why? Anybody? Yes, guys, we are almost going to do this demonstration together. So please share your views. That will make it more interesting. Yes, guys. I understand from Linux perspective, this is all new, but guys, yeah, so you have to start from somewhere. So, and remember, this is the most important part of group like Active Directory discussion or Windows discussion. So anybody wants to answer here? Yes? Anybody wants to tell me? Yes, OU1 gets it and OU2 as well. So John, how do we prove ourselves? If I go to OU2 and I just click inheritance, do you see how OU2 says that you're getting two policies, one from parent OU and the other one you're getting it from the domain because you're a member of the domain. So there is some domain policy flowing down and there is parent OU policy flowing down on the child OU2. Do you want to try blocking? What do you think? What will happen? Yes, guys. If I block, what do you think would happen? Which policies will be disappearing? Yes, guys. If I go to OU2, I showed you in my drawing. If I block, what do you think? Let's see the magic. Oops. I just wanted to block GPO1, but guess what? You blocked everything from the top. Then what is the way around? What is the way around if I say I just wanted to block GPO1 but not my domain policies? So you go up the level, pick up a GPO, and you can say enforce that. And this is how when you go to OU2, now it says, yes, in spite of blocking, you are getting this policy because it has been enforced on you. So we saw inheritance, we saw blocking, we saw enforcing. Let's take an example that I have an OU called sales. And sales OU people need the same policy as GPO1. I can right click and say link an existing GPO and choose from the list, or all your group policies come under the group policy objects container and I can drag it to my sales OU. It says, oh, are you sure you want to link it? So like I said, there are always different ways to, and notice when I link it on the sales, it shows me that sales OU has both the policies domain and GPO coming in. Can any one of you explain that in case of conflict between domain policy and GPO1, what would sales user be getting? If some settings contradict between domain and GPO1, GPO1 is applied directly to sales and the domain is coming from the top. What do you think would win? Remember, domain policy here has been enforced. And enforced means that that policy will execute at the end. And this is the reason you see this precedence that number one is domain policy, which means higher precedence is given to domain policy because it has been enforced, which means kind of that it will be GPO1 executing and then default domain policy executing. Does it make sense? Sorry, GPO1 will execute later. So, sorry, I'll correct that, I'm sorry. I would like to mention that when OU2 people log in, they will first get GPO2 and then they will get domain policy with the result, if conflict happens, the domain policy will win over GPO1. Does that make sense, guys? So this is what enforce does. Domain policy will have a higher precedence over anything because it has been enforced. So you saw linking, inheritance, blocking, enforcing. We didn't do one thing, which is filtering. So let's take an example that let's assume there are some users here. So let's take an example. There is a user under OU1 and I applied the group policy setting to the OU. So which means everyone gets it. So I pick up GPO1 and I go to delegation, GPO1, delegation. I go advanced. This OU1 has lots of users, but there is a user with the name, Adam in OU1, let's assume, and he should not be getting that GPO1 settings. So pick up the name of the user, which I just added, and say deny, like this is called apply group policy, and you will choose this would be a kind of filtering. This is a filtering. So that means this GPO1 applied on OU1, everyone gets it Everyone in the OU1 gets those settings except Adam. And if you think there are 5 people who don't need GPO1, then you can rather put them in a group and filter the group. Does it make sense, guys? So this is a quick overview of how policies work. Hope it gave you a quick, a little more understanding. I totally understand that we have been working on group policies now for years, but still it has been the most interesting topic of discussion in my classes. So we thought we'll take over and, try to ask you if you guys have any other questions or if you liked it. Yes, guys, anything you would like to ask? I mean, there's so much here which you can talk about, just policies, but we just thought it would be a quick overview of, how policies work. Anything you would like to ask? Thank you, John. I just saw your answers. One of you answered it very well, that it will be GPO1 and then domain policy where I enforced it. Perfect. You can do enforcing at the Manish, you can enforce on the domain level. You don't have to, but think about, depending on how you, let's say you are the only person handling policies. So you know that the policies you applied on the domain, you will never conflict on the OU because you are the only one doing it. So you may not like to enforce it because you know that there's nothing going to contradict. But if you feel that, maybe I forget it, and it's very important that you get these policies, even if anybody tries to contradict with it, you should try to enforce it. And remember, like I said, there is no limit to this discussion, guys. But again, there are some settings like passwords. Whenever you define a password policy, we always do it on the domain. You will never do it at site or OU. You will always do it on domain. So these are those small things which you learn with your experience, okay? Okay, so enforcement, Larry, it's enforcement, which is actually pushing it to the end and making it win, okay? Is there any reason, I see, is there any reason why we would want to use OUs instead of groups? Very good, very good. I'm sorry, I see you as R. Brown. So I'm addressing to your question here, R. Brown, that yes, policies, it's funny, you always say group policies, but it is never, ever applied to groups because groups are mainly designed for permissions. So groups, the main purpose of grouping is that, oh, I have a folder and I want to assign permission to 10 people. Instead of doing it one at a time, I would rather put them in a group and assign permissions. That is the reason of groups. That is the reason OUs was designed, and it's primarily designed to handle policies. And you cannot apply actually Active Directory group policies on groups. It's just done on the OUs instead. Does it make sense? So OUs are for policies, groups are for permissions. Another reason of creating OU could be delegation. That instead of let's say you've got a department in your company, instead of making like a person needs to handle that department, I don't want him to be a domain admin, but I can make him an OU admin. So the main two reasons why we have OUs is delegation and policies. And groups are kept away. Groups are never used for policies. And another thing which I would like to mention, R. Brown, here is that if you add a user to an OU, he stays there. If you delete the OU, his account is also gone. OU is a container. A user can never be a member of multiple OUs, but a user can be a member of multiple groups, if that answers your question. Groups are logical. A user can be a member of multiple groups. If I delete the group, it doesn't affect the account. But if I delete the OU, a user cannot be a member of multiple OUs. If you delete OU, everything under that gets deleted. And a user, whatever user computer account will get deleted if you don't move it out before deleting it. Anything else, guys? Good questions, I should say. Will enforce be higher than filtering deny? Filtering deny is more. Filtering is because a deny wins over allow, right? That kind of thing. So if you've explicitly denied, he doesn't get it. Good questions. And remember, like, how the things are, like some things are done at a level, like blocking, enforcing is done with respect to a GPO. They have designed it in a way. Now we have to tune it in a way which best suits our requirements. Any other questions, guys? Like I said, feel free to answer. And I think Anas also mentioned. Anas, would you like to speak something here about the question and answer page?
No, I think R. Brown asked in the question and answer section,
Okay.
so he mentioned it here, so we are good.
How about if we enforce GPO1? Good question, San. I'm reading that. How about if we enforce GPO1 on sales OU, which one wins? If you enforce, very good question. So is that what you're asking, that what if there was a policy enforced on the domain and there was a policy enforced on the OU? Is that your question? If that's the question, Sam, the answer is reverse the sequence. So if there was an OU on, if there was a domain policy GPO1 and there is an OU policy GPO2, and by chance both are enforced, it will be GPO2 and then GPO1. That is my answer. So OU policy first and then domain policy, and that way domain policy wins. Is it clear? So reverse. If let's say there was no enforcing, it would have been domain and then OU. But if you enforce both of them, it will be OU and then domain. Sure, Geltine. Sure, sure. Any other guys, feel free to ask any questions. I'm really, again, apologizing for the delay. There was some confusion, and I hope we, gave you all what we had. Any other questions, guys? It was pleasure having you here. And feel free to enter questions in the question answer section. Thank you.